Well, hello to everyone. Thank you so much for spending a little time with us today. Gentlemen, it's so good to see you both again. We were just here last year. It seems both a long time ago, lots happened, but kind of feels like just yesterday a little bit too. But one of the big differences for me, at least, and I'm curious to get your takes on this, sitting here today versus this time last year, is this kind of new energy around driving automation, autonomous vehicles. You know, we had some years of a lot of hype. There was a lot of excitement, and then we had some years where there were a lot of challenges and a lot of disillusionment. And it feels like over the last year or so, we're starting to see this technology become more real, and along with that, attitudes are starting to shift again a little bit. That's my take. Talking to people around the space, I'd love to kind of ask you both if you're sort of feeling similar things, or how you see the space as having evolved over the last year or so.
Yeah, I think it's been a really exciting year or so that pretty much anyone now can go and ride in an autonomous vehicle in the wild. That was not a thing a year ago. And so it's really helping to push the industry forward. I think one of the interesting things for us is I think about this sometimes as like acts in a play. The act one in the AV industry was, can you make the technology work? And now we see several companies putting checks in those boxes. And now we're moving into this really interesting phase of, can you make the business work?
Yeah.
Can you actually scale what you built? And that's an exciting, that's what's coming next.
Yeah.
I think I would also say, generally, of course, in this market and industry, we were just talking about building trust is super important. I think competition is critical, but also actually showing milestones, showing deployments at scale, and I would say convergence of the players separating out, those that can deliver versus those that were not able to for whatever reason is actually a really good thing for the market. And I think that is in part ways where folks from customers to investors, anybody, average users can start seeing, hey, I can build my trust in this player or that player. They can actually make bets on people versus maybe a year or two years ago, there were still a number of players. Now I think there's this kind of thinning out of the market that we're just talking about that I think is provides significant opportunities for Ed and his team and May Mobility team, and we're excited to be part of that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the really interesting things is that some of the companies that have come and gone were the ones that had the most attention, the most money. They were sort of the big thing. And for a lot of people, they kind of defined the space. And for those of us who've been around for a while, and, Ed, I've known you for some years, and I've followed May Mobility and other companies, there's more going on there, right? And it feels like one of the parts of this shift is that there's an opportunity for companies who have done different things, right? Who have not chosen to do the kind of big, overhyped kind of flame out thing. And I think of May Mobility as being one of those companies. Could you just tell folks a little bit about kind of what makes you a little different than maybe some of the other players in the space?
Yeah. So if you haven't heard of May Mobility, we develop our own self-driving technology. And in a lot of ways, the product that we build looks a lot like the Waymo or a Lyft or an Uber. What's been different about it is that we've really been much more capital efficient. We spent a tiny fraction, like 1% as much capital as Waymo, but we've also been able to deliver a lot of the same kinds of outcomes. You may not have heard of May Mobility, but we are driver out in 2 cities in the United States right now. We'll add another driver out site in later this month, and we're in 10 cities in total across North America and Japan. And so our strategy has been to go and build those relationships, build trust with regulators. But what's different about our strategy is that we're not focused on robotaxi. Robotaxi is actually a really difficult business. The revenue potential is quite low. And so the only place that you can make a robotaxi work is in the biggest metropolitan areas where you'd have a chance of keeping your assets utilized all the time so that you can have a chance to be profitable. And that's where we see Waymo focusing on the biggest of the big cities where they can drive asset utilization up. But this leaves the vast majority of the country in need of better transportation solutions that Waymo's not going to be able to get to anytime soon and be able to make any money. We instead focus on working with those cities directly, selling long-term vehicle contracts. So we sell an entire fleet of vehicles to a municipality that's integrated in with their public transit system. And we've been able to make the unit economics work in everything from rural communities like Grand Rapids, Minnesota. It's a 14,000 people, snow up to here. It's a great place. To mid-sized cities like Ann Arbor and Arlington, Texas, to big cities like Detroit and Miami. So that's a key difference. The business model, while the vehicle looks very similar, the product is very similar. The go-to-market strategy has allowed us to build our business much more effectively.
Yeah, and I think it gives a sense of, this isn't just about cars, right? This technology has a lot of different potential applications. And if you're someone who likes transit, you don't necessarily have to. I mean, a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't like AVs, they're just cars. And I'm like, check out May Mobility. It's not just cars. But I wanted to, as a supplier, I feel like you have a similar challenge that, media kind of have in this space in terms of figuring out like what's real, what's not. Who do you, because partnerships, right, are the core of what you do. And, trucking is not always the use case that jumps out. Certainly, again, what May Mobility does is fairly unique in this space. What have you learned about partnerships, about avoiding maybe, big sort of splash that maybe never actually comes to be versus finding folks who are doing it and have this like executable plan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in similar ways, I think Aeva has also been really capital efficient and deploying, really bringing in completely new technology to the market. If you look at across the space, of course, there was a number of players also a few years ago that were doing LiDAR. That has also thinned out significantly, right? And there's been also shifts and trends in the market, and maybe some of the folks that were initially splashier or others are did not get as much traction. And I think we are starting to see that really materialize and be a forcing function for our progress because of the investments we made early on and the choice of the technology that we made. It's taken us, of course, years to get to a point where we could actually bring, something that's quite unique and differentiated in 4D LiDAR with velocity advantages that it comes with, integration on the chip level, all that in the market. But we're now really, putting the pedal to the metal, as the saying goes, and getting to that scale. Like this is the year 25 is where we're actually looking to scale with our Atlas product to a number of customers. I think the other thing besides just product strategy also is on the customer strategy. I think we've been fortunate to be able to partner with some of the leaders in each of the respective spaces. We did not go after every shiny object that came out from the beginning. I think we had some fortune to be able to make some of those decisions. And, as you mentioned, okay, with Daimler on the commercial vehicle side, we have that kind of strength of an OEM bringing us up to a speed in terms of quality and scale that is going to be beneficial to all of the other players and partners, customers we work with. With May, we have the strong customer that is deploying now and here, right, in mobility, and it is a really nice kind of a bridging function for us in terms of also our scaling capability, right? So going from not just prototype samples and all those things to actual thousands of units deployed and delivered to 10,000. This is kind of the journey we're on right now, and this is the year that we are doing so. So being able to do those decisions from a product architecture standpoint and then customer strategy to maybe be more selective. Obviously you're not going to be able to work with everybody, but both in terms of leaders in their space that have scale, but also I think folks that you can actually collaborate with on a day-to-day. That's also very important. I think from a relationship standpoint, okay, from Ed here, myself, and the rest of the team have to be able to work together closely because you're going to go through challenges and ups and downs, and you have to be able to work through those things. And so that support, I think, as a supplier, also is going to be critical in the story of any successful partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Ed, you mentioned Grand Rapids, right? Snow. I think there's sometimes the perception that the technology still can only work in bright sunny places with big clear roads, and obviously San Francisco is a little different than that, but there's not a lot of companies operating where it's snowy. Tell us a little bit about the challenges there, maybe the role that LiDAR plays in sort of dealing with some of these broader range of circumstances.
Yeah, it's always been really important for us to figure out how we can reach all of these different communities because part of the mission of the company is really about working with public transit to help people get where they want to go. And that means being able to bring our vehicles and be able to operate them in bad weather. you can't just stop running public transit because there's snow on the ground, right? That's not acceptable. And so we've been able to operate everywhere from Grand Rapids, Minnesota, where it snows really high, and it gets very cold, to Arizona, where it gets really hot, to Miami, where you've got the daily monsoon, and be able to not only develop our technology, but also really harden the vehicle and make sure that the vehicles can handle the temperature swings and the moisture ingress and things like that.
Yeah, and this is just opening the range of places that down the road you can continue to expand to, right? You're not stuck with, we have this one profile of kind of city or climate or whatever that we have to be stuck to.
Absolutely. And it's great when you have another customer who's like, oh, I don't know about AVs in the snow. It's like, we've got a site. You can go for a ride today. It's deployed.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I know you do all your own, testing, obviously, make sure that everything you're doing is robust to all of the circumstances you have to get to. But having a partner that is out in a lot of different circumstances, that's got to provide you with some interesting insights.
Absolutely. I think one of the key things is, there is, you have to develop the technology and the product in a way that is going to be robust for, across use cases. I think an advantage of us hardening this technology for the commercial vehicle space is that there is kind of a little bit of a superset of requirements in terms of shock and vibe, in terms of thermals and all those that we have to meet that, helps to actually then be able to satisfy some of the other, use cases and markets and the types of weather that Ed is talking about. Obviously, you have to make sure that you meet the IP standards, the right, the right temperature profiles, and you have to work under, different rain and monsoon and all those things. But it's also important. It's not, you go away for like 2 years and then come back with the perfect product. I think it's this feedback loop between, the two partners that makes it work, right? Because at the end of the day, all the chamber testing and the simulation you can do in the world will give you certain kind of confidence and standards to meet. But the real world is not just a bunch of standards. You have to get actual data from the real world. And that's why with May, we've started already working on the first vehicle. We started already doing some on-road deployments. And the goal is from here on to hit on for scaling and keep improving that product. We're eventually moving to the Atlas product. So that's kind of where.
And just, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, key for us is, so last year, I guess we sat here, it was just the beginning of our partnership. I think Ed kind of first comment on, the work that they've been doing on the vehicle side. We've, the team have been working together to define the integration concept for the vehicle, come up with hey, what is the right configuration, number of sensors, fields of view, 360 coverage, where does FMCW add the most benefits, and starting to actually implement that. And, we have to have, I've already started delivering number of sensors already, so that's going to be starting to be fit on the vehicles. And then, as the May team continues their operations, going from 2 to 3 to a bunch of other additional cities, especially in the US and North America, we see that opportunity to then scale with our mass production intent product, which is really timely because this is the year that we are, with this Atlas product, we are going to production, starting that up. Together, we will then harden this product for further mass production, going from multiple 1,000, 10,000 to 100,000. And so that's, I think, a really nice kind of stepping stone there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think, from here, there's so much cool, real stuff happening, but you always have to keep an eye on the future and what's coming next. So, Ed, what is coming next for May? At least that you can talk about.
Well, so one of the things that we're very excited about right now is 13 months ago, we had never operated a vehicle without a safety driver. And since then, now we've launched 2 cities without safety drivers. Third one's just around the corner, as I mentioned. And so we've really seen this inflection point in the technology where we're ready to go. We're ready to start scaling this. And so we're thinking a lot about what are the partners that we're going to bring, both on the sensor side, but also in the sales channel side. We announced a new partner last year, NTT, which is going to be a distribution partner for us in Japan. Huge partner, really fantastic. And so what you're going to see is a lot of scaling. I think the key thing with in the AV space, so many companies spent way too much money ahead of their commercialization. And this ultimately caused them a lot of heartache. Yeah. And I think we're very cautious about that as well. But we think at this point, we've got those proof points where it really is time to start scaling the business. And with the consolidation in the industry, we look around and there's only 2 companies in the United States that operate without safety drivers carrying members of the general public. It's Waymo and May. And we did it on 1% of the capital, which is pretty cool.
It's super cool. And for me, it really goes to show, I think to really appreciate what's going on in this space, you do have to be able to go a little bit deeper than some of the headlines and find, because not all the cool stuff is getting as much, or has so far, I would say, gotten as much attention as it deserves. My hope certainly is that as this whole space is shifting into this new chapter, talk is cheap, and I say this as a podcaster, but it is, right? And autonomy is not, right? And getting these systems safe and making them really work driverlessly. And actually, really quick, I know we're almost out of time, but just give people a sense of how important that, what it takes to get the driver out, because that is the point. I know from just riding the first time you ride, it's like, the difference between having a human there ready to take over versus I'm putting my life in the hands of this technology. Just what does that step sort of mean to you all?
Yeah, and this is where I think we have a different view on how you make the safety case. The biggest problem that you hear talked about in the industry is the problem of edge cases. What happens when the vehicle finds itself in a situation that's very unfamiliar? And this is when the vehicles tend to do bad things. And the reason this is such a challenge is because of the way the technology has been built in most AV companies. So, neural networks are what everyone is using, and those are feed-forward networks, whether it's a convolutional network or a transformer network. They are not very data efficient. It takes a huge amount of data to train those networks. And when they are outside of their training set, they make mistakes. But a human, Elon the other day was talking about that their strategic advantage is they drive millions of miles. Well, how many millions of miles did you need to see to learn to drive? Right, so something's wrong, right? So humans have an ability to handle these one-of-a-kind situations without driving millions of miles first. And the reason for that is that we aren't purely feed-forward networks. We have feed-forward networks in our visual cortex, but a lot of that problem solving of, I'm in a weird situation, what's going on here? That pedestrian, they're behaving strangely. We pop out of reflexive driving and we go into deliberative imagining mode. You can feel this in your brain, like you're switching out of la 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 into, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? And that's your prefrontal cortex. This is where you are not purely feed-forward, but you have a lot more cyclical reasoning. And this has been missing in autonomous vehicles. If you don't have that capability to reason through a new situation that you've never seen before, then you're stuck playing the game of collecting millions of miles and trying to make a statistical argument that is probably safe enough.
Yep.
So what we've done in our vehicles is we have those feed-forward networks in our system, but we add a multi-policy decision-making, which is an online reinforcement learning algorithm that can deliberate. It can imagine, it can think about what might happen next in the situation the vehicle's actually in. And the beauty of this is, like a human driver, it works even if you've never been in that situation before. So we can make a safety case about those edge cases without relying on statistical millions of miles.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time, and I hate this because once we start talking about this stuff, I just want to keep going. But I want to give you the last word here, and I want to play off what he was just talking about. There's so much hype and excitement around AI. And obviously, it's the core of what makes autonomous driving happen. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't really understand about it is that the data, obviously everyone knows, right? You need data AI runs on data. Perception, taking perception beyond one camera or camera and LiDAR, the quality, it's not just the quantity, it's the quality of data that you're able to get is fundamental to empowering AI to make decisions that you can bet people's lives on. Talk a little bit about that to kind of close out this.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, there's this whole argument about, hey, okay, do you need this kind of technology? Do you need that modality? Do you need a sensor? Do you need LiDAR? That's been a conversation. We talked about Elon and Tesla, and it's been a story for a long time. There's never a simple answer, and it's always a long discussion, but it all comes down to, at the end of the day, okay, you can throw all the best algorithms and you will get there maybe close to this, maybe 98, 99 or 19 or whatever it is, but you're just not going to get there The question is really cost of capital and efficiency and safety and how you balance all those out so you get the full ROI out of this investment. I think in similar ways, Ed is talking about their multi-decision policy making. We have been able to basically say, okay, at the end of the day, if garbage is in, you will get some form of a garbage out, or maybe something that's not going to be gold at the end of the day. So you have to have that data in the perception stack and the visual cortex, as Ed is calling it, to be able to make those decisions, no matter what kind of algorithms you're throwing at it. If you cannot see something, you're the best, machine learning algorithms or the best thing is not going to make them appear. It's just not going to happen. You can offset, you can, maybe compensate with other modalities, but we have been of the view, and I think it's now kind of coming to fruition, that if you can add that additional dimension of velocity or other things, you just gain that additional safety, confidence, we call it safety net, whatever it is, that could help the end user make those decisions easier. And you're doing it in a way that is, very efficient return on investment, and in terms of capital that's actually going into it, compute capital, resources, whatever it may be that is going. So we have been off this view, and I think now the big thing is going to be how you scale from here. It's all about, as you said, talk is cheap. How you actually get the numbers out as you scale on the vehicles in real world use cases. I think the days of simulation only and the days of prototypes only is completely over. But also the days of investing lots and lots of hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars without end users paying for them also is coming to a rapid end. So I think that's why we're excited here with this partnership to actually deliver real world benefits and scale in 25 and 26, step by step, going to the thousands of units.
Absolutely. And again, there's been so much up and down and hype and this and that. And there's something that about doing real things in the real world that cuts through all that, and it clarifies. And I think, Ed, you're absolutely right. It's making it sustainable as a business is really fundamental to that as well. It's not just making it work in the messiness of the real world and not just in a parking lot at CES, that's part of this maturing process. But then the other one is the business part, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just building an R&D vehicle, a small fleet of vehicles at no cost is no object. We've always been very deliberate about what is a sensor that is going to provide a huge amount of value to our vehicle at a price point that is commercially acceptable. And this is one of the reasons that we're excited about working with Aeva. So the Aeva sensors really do provide the range, sensitivity, and the instantaneous velocity estimates that we think will make our car a better, safer, and more capable vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you see people promising a lot of stuff about AI, it's how well can they see the problem that they're trying to solve fundamentally, right? Because the more you see about it, the more you're able to process and understand what this is. We are running out of we're out of time. We're over time. Could keep going. This is, as always, gentlemen, so much fun. I always enjoy our chats here. I always enjoy hearing what you are up to. And maybe if folks are intrigued by what's going on, take another look at the AV space, because it's really getting exciting, and it's only going to get more exciting from here. And I can't wait to be back here in another year and talking about what all's happened in the meantime.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.